This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
We often talk to businesses about maximising their time and really thinking like almost like a manufacturing business. Like, how are you going to get better at this? How are you going to cut down your production time? How are you going to, make sure that you really are maximising your time in your kitchen? Then we say to them, so how are you going to sell that?
The world of food is one of the most innovative playing fields of all, with people always thinking about new ways to get nutritious, ethical, sustainable kilojoules into our mouths. One of the people that's working in this space is Lou Zarro. Lou is the manager of the Food Incubator at the Melbourne Innovation Centre. Lou, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you, Dani. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to chat to you. I know you always have a million things on the go. It's such interesting work that you do at the Innovation Centre. Give us a little rundown of what happens there.
No problem. So I see our space very much as, if you like, a co-working space, but for budding food innovators, food startups, and just, hospitality pros who just want to really give full flight and fantasy to their side hustle. So we have created a space that is, for us, very much a kind of maker space, a co-working centre, but also a network. So a place where the little startup that has this fantastic idea in alternative protein or in something like novel ingredient can connect with us, get access to both the kit and the tools that they need to start trialing, piloting, making up some batches of their product, but also connecting to some really switched on food techs and even some tech companies that have joined our community. So we're both a food incubator and network centre. Hence the name Food Inc. is actually Food Incubator and Network Centre, which we thought was pretty bloody clever. But we're very much both a space for making, but a space for connecting too.
And tell us about some of the interesting startups, people that are beavering away in there.
So we've had a real the full sort of plethora of really interesting businesses come and join us. We've got everyone we're embedded on the campus of Melbourne Polytechnic Preston, so we've taken on large space there. So we've been a real sort of go-to space for even just local food artisan producers. So we have incredible business like two locals. One is an amazing chocolate maker called Locke for Cocoa, who is, when she's in the kitchen, it's always great fun because there's always some broken chocolate to go around. And then there is another great business which is called No Fun for Children that does chili sauce. So they're very much sort of artisan food producers who have this great space and resource like it. But then we also have people trialing novel ingredients or novel processes. So we have three food technologists that bring in clients to do batch work, and some of that work's even top secret, so I can't go into too much detail. But then also through our community, we have some amazing businesses who aren't necessarily used in the kitchen, but we've been working with them, connecting them with support, advice, grants, funding, and even doing things like connecting them back through Melbourne Polytechnic for market research and support from the students who need that industry access. So we've got one of the great businesses that we have really strong ties with is a business you know of, which is Magic Valley, who are in the novel protein space with their amazing cultured products, which are quite remarkable, and they're really going to be a world dominator, a world leader in this space, I think.
It's so interesting because, I mean, as you've described, you've got these sort of artisans, perhaps sole operators who just need a space to, follow their food dream. And then you've got these quite tech-heavy entrepreneurial startups that are, looking for world domination. It's quite a dynamic space, isn't it?
Very much so. And but I guess the point of communion between them is the fact that many of them are from Melbourne's north, and one of the stakeholders that got our project off the ground was the Melbourne's North Food Group. So they're a fantastic industry association led by the brilliant Margaret McClellan, who and that's started from a small grouping of businesses around Whittlesea, and Hume Council now have grown to over 200 members, and it really takes in some of the great and large businesses in Melbourne's North, that's Amora Cheese and all sorts of huge businesses, Sea Lane, all these fantastic food services, food manufacturers, the Melbourne market as well. So we really do see ourselves as being an activator for both sort of the grassroots activity happening in Melbourne's North, but also the wonderful activity happening more at that kind of at the sort of institutional, large sort of stakeholder level. So where there are many plans afoot for real high-end food innovation to become concentrated in Melbourne's North. It's no secret that, there is, the Zarro, Latrobe, RMIT, and the Melbourne market, they're doing a mountain of work to really build the ecosystem of innovation in Melbourne's North, and you can see why. You've got such a legacy of amazing businesses located in that space, but then you've got all the infrastructure. You've got, the Melbourne Airport, you've got the Melbourne Market, of course, and then there's even things that, aren't lesser known of, like the major rail port that's going to be built, I think, out past Calcalo. So there's all this kind of really hard, heavy infrastructure that is plugging into sort of local, national, and global supply chains. So from that macro level, there really is so much activity. So we really see what we're doing as being, in a position to help the kind of grassroots innovation that's happening, and then plug the Magic Valleys of the world and other great businesses like Eighth Day Foods that do really interesting stuff with in alternative proteins, plug them into some of those networks as well. So it's pretty cool. We get to play at the big end of town and also at the grassroots.
And what's the funding, like who funds you?
So we're self-funded. So we have got some initial funding from some of the local government partners to get the kitchen planned and built at Melbourne Polytechnic. Then, of course, we have significant in-kind support from Melbourne Polytechnic, who are amazing. And then we're working to both funding models that leverage our status as a not-for-profit entity, that being Melbourne Innovation Centre. And also working on programming that where we can go with local government partners, say, look, here's a package of training and support to build startups. Here's how we can do it together. But we're also very keen on being reaching out to corporates and saying, from a corporate social responsibility perspective, we're in a fortunate position where we do have businesses that very much focus on a for impact model. So we, Meals with Impact are this amazing social enterprise that are getting a bit of buzz around the city for their amazing culturally sensitive food. They, they have some great corporate partners. So we're leveraging partnerships with entities like that to grow our business case. So you very much got a package of funding, fee for service stuff, grants and funding, and then the kitchen usage.
Yeah, sometimes, you just feel like there are so many ideas out there, so many great ideas and so much need, some of these social enterprises that are doing such important work. But yeah, you do get the feeling that it's without knowing where to start or what some of those important connections might be, that, these ideas are less likely to soar. So do you feel like that's where you can come in?
Very much so. We really have a business model that reduces barriers to become both operational and compliant. So, I've got a number of case studies of businesses that weren't getting anywhere from with in a neighbouring council, but they've come to us, and because we've built such a wonderful rapport with the Darwin City Council, and the compliance team there, they know our kitchen space, they know the business model we're trying to do, and they know that we really are building a community of startups. They come into the kitchen. I work on the paperwork with these small businesses, and they get going. And equally as some of the work we've done with Meals with Impact shows, our connection, where in our case we were able to give them some in-kind support to get going. They're both their smarts and the opportunity to get compliant and to be on the tools and to make connections with Melbourne Polytechnic. And, this evening they're hosting an Ishtar dinner, and there's going to be some Melbourne Poly hospitality students working the floor with them. So just these wonderful, beautiful connections of kind of almost like a water cooler connection that's made around a Rational oven. It's kind of like, it really is a space where these lovely connections just happen.
Yeah, so good, Lou. And I mean, food is all about connection, if you ask me. It's just, the best place. You meet the best people, and, you have the best fun while you come up with great ideas and bring them to fruition. What is it that took you into this role?
Great question. So my background, both from a kind of, being, of Italian origin, but also my professional background, I was always involved in food or near food or food manufacturing. So, I came out of the local government sort of partnerships world, but and so I was doing a lot of work reducing red tape, around red tape reform for businesses in local government. So, some of the projects I worked on when I was still in government were significant reform to just reducing the barriers to entry especially for food businesses. There's been, in across Victoria now, local governments really lifted their game around having single points of entry for a business. So knowing the difference between a planning permit and a building permit and a food permit has been made a lot easier thanks to all the work that people like myself have done previously in local government to reduce red tape. So I came out of that space. But I also have a family I come from a family that ran a fresh produce store at the Queen Victoria Market, actually, so for nearly 20 years. So, as a student, I was always helping the family business out, with the potato dirt under my fingernails. So really enjoying being around great food, hospitality businesses. So always had an eye on that space. And, before that as well, after uni, I was in the market research world and working, on food businesses or for food businesses for clients that were from the FMCG world. So always been around food and, just the traditions too are really strong. I mean, yesterday I was making passata with the family, so you can go figure out, all that traditions are absolutely, and absolutely front and center for me. And some of my best mates include, great producers like, James Mealy from the Meat Room out at East Kilmore East. I've got friends who are better cooks than me, so together we often have great Sunday lunches.
Oh, sounds so good, Lou. And it hasn't been a great year for tomatoes this year, but did you get enough to make a good batch of passata?
We got some good ones at a ridiculous price, but I think my mother was ultra paranoid that the 300 bottles in the cellar weren't going to be enough, so she made us make another batch.
So, Lou, running one thing just is not enough for you. Can you tell me about Food Hack Melbourne?
Absolutely. So Food Hack is a global network for food innovation, and the sort of like the very much the major port of knowledge and really interesting news around food innovation globally. So Food Hack, based out of Lausanne in Switzerland, founded by a really well-known VC angel and investor, and subsequently have been instrumental in fostering these really cool meetups across cities all over the world. So and really innovative cities for food innovation. So Tel Aviv and obviously Switzerland, and where there's all the great FMCG global headquarters of Nestlé's of the world, and so on and so forth. And so I saw there was an opportunity to put up a bids to be an ambassador for the city of Melbourne. Melbourne wasn't represented, so I applied for that, and along with also with Paul Bevan from Magic Valley, we, unbeknownst to me, but it worked out beautifully because we were already working together. So yeah, so this year we'll be hosting 4 meetups under the Food Hack brand, and in fact we have a date May the 18th for our first event. We'll be looking at the future of alternative protein, what it means for the city and for food tech innovation in this space. So that's going to be really exciting. With more details on that, would love to send them your way, Dani. But yeah, really a great opportunity just to see and connect, and and really be a place where startups and venture capitalists and some of the research infrastructure facilitators that are out there, those that work at university and the SCI, etc., can really connect in a kind of safe and non, almost like a bit of an agnostic way. It's not like an alternative agenda. It's just about we're here to connect and to just share best practice and to meet. How are we going to do that? Because I think Melbourne has all the I guess, the infrastructure's there, the smarts are here. There just needs some of that connecting, and that in some regards, some of the great FMCG companies that employ hundreds of people across this state need to, and then while they had some forays into sort of food incubation themselves, I think of Chobani and Mondelez and stuff. They've all done sort of open innovation for startups, and they do work in that space. I think there can be an opportunity to do more. So it'd be interesting to see who gets engaged, what happens, and how we reconnect. So I'm really, really keen to see the next wave of innovation come out of in the spaces where I work, out of sort of Melbourne's north. But I think there's scope for a lot more innovation across the whole city. So kind of want to be in our own small way through the Food Hack Group, start shaping some of that narrative.
I get this picture from you starting to form for me, where you've got these huge multinationals that are doing a lot of work, developing products and looking at, whether it's alternative protein or, free from this or free from that, and obviously putting a lot of money into it because they want to make a lot of money, and I'm inherently suspicious of anything that they do. But then there's this other end of it, which is, people like Paul from Magic Valley, who I've interviewed for another story, and I know that he comes at the alternative protein space from a very ethical point of view, that he wants to remove animals from the supply chain, so he's engineering meat. Where do you think the meeting place is for these two, I'm going to say, opposing forces? These creatives that are squirreling away looking for funding, and these, I'm just going to say, evil multinationals that are sort of having this more of a top-down approach.
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer, but I know that I want to be part of creating the space where that answer gets somewhat looked at closer. So yeah, that's where Food Hack is a great start. But I also know that there are businesses, and take Chobani as an example. They are, yes, they're a multinational, but are they evil? They've got a track record of investing in communities, in cold groups, and they're an economic development player in where they're based in Southeast, and I'm sure they give work to a significant number of people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. So are they evil? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not fair of me to lump them all in together.
Yeah, but through what we do and through some of the innovations that's out there, I think there is Melbourne and a city that does have a track record of great philanthropy, fantastic innovation translation between university and industry. So I think I'm referring to sort of the biomedical, where Melbourne is and all the infrastructure in Parkville is a real giant. I would like to hope that we can create a similar pole and cluster of just a hotbed of innovation in Melbourne's north when all the players tee up. But I think it's a tricky one, but it's better to be, I don't know, I think it's better to be in the tent than to be out of the tent, and not wanting to be in a position to challenge the Simplots and all these other amazing large FMCG businesses that employ hundreds and hundreds of people in this state. Challenge them to say, how are you going to be better tapping into the community? How are you going to be better supporting, across all the key goals that a business should be tracking to these days, like, the UN Sustainable Development Goals and, similar things like that. And yeah, absolutely, they have a lot of work to do, but, to have them at the table is a good start. So, and so, yeah, it's a great question. I guess be one nice to revisit after a year of, running Food Hack, and, even with Food Inc, we're not quite a year old yet. So, and while we've had, good starts of conversation with multinationals, without naming who, about them supporting us, we still are waiting for them to, come on board.
Interesting. Well, much better for you, Lou, with your more diplomatic approach to be sitting at the table with them than me barreling in with my skeptical journo hat on. But
oh, well, that's the whole point of the Fifth Estate, to be holding accountable some of those firms. And look, there's so much more that can be done in this space. But you look at the big. I mean, we also live in a country where there's effectively a duopoly of FMCG retail, but that's sort of been slightly eroded in some ways through markets and interest in brands and smaller, and sort of moving up the supply chain for quality products and so on and so forth through smaller retailers. But even then, the Woolworths of the world, they have they've made significant strides on sustainability and understanding their own role around food waste and all sorts of things. Because that's another really interesting area too. Food waste innovation is something that and there's some great players doing things in this space already. Seeing more of that would be, and being part of conversations around that would be amazing. And I lived in the Yarra Valley, worked in the Yarra Valley, and it's still the amount of waste that, for the big ticket items that come out of there, like cherries and strawberries, are just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly a lot of work to do in that space. So Lou, let's say I've got, I think it's a great idea. I want to have it incubated. I want to be part of this innovation hub. What would I do?
Well, first step is to jump on our website, foodincubator.com.au, express your interest. It's big on the big blue express your interest button. That way we get all your central data and a bit about what you wanted to do, and then myself or someone from the team will follow up with you straight away, and just invite you to our space to have a bit, a first conversation around what do you want to do, where you're at, what support do you need. And often when I have like really switched on chefs reaching out and saying, know everything about operating a kitchen, but I know nothing about brand and marketing, or set up an Instagram and so on and so forth. And it's quite phenomenal how social media, when used well, can really give, as really gives a boost to cooks. I think of it. It's a guy, Andy. Is it Andy Reid? I think his name is. He's a real guru of online Instagram cooking. And he's got that very snappy catchline, goes, "Babe, what do you want for dinner?" And this guy has got millions and millions of followers on TikTok and social media, and he's probably got cookbooks and stuff on their way and what have you. There's some great examples of points of reference that businesses don't know of. So it depends on the business that comes through the door, but it could be, on the other hand, there's someone who's got a great knowledge of marketing, or even has been worked in that space, but they don't know how to get around the tools. So, I mentioned No Fun for Children, and the founder of that business, had a digital marketing agency and has beautiful, awesome marketing, knows everything about social media, etc. But she went and enrolled in a Cert 4 commercial cookery at Melbourne Poly because she needed to get more confident on the tools and so on and so forth. So, and also get confident around just being kind of lean and efficient in the kitchen. So we often talk to businesses about maximising their time and really thinking like almost like a manufacturing business. Like, how are you going to get better at this? How are you going to cut down your production time? How are you going to, make sure that you really are maximising your time in your kitchen? Then we say to them, you can do with all of a sudden what you're doing at home, you can multiply by 10 when you're access to two commercial ovens and kettles and heaps of bench space and a blast chiller and so on and so forth. So how are we going to sell that? So we ask a lot of questions.
I think even the process of being asked those questions would be so valuable for people who are just, testing their ideas.
Very much so. And sometimes, we've had people visit and they say, look, I actually don't think I'm ready yet to be doing, this amount of product, even if it's over an afternoon, because I realise it's quite a lot to take on board and build a new brand. But, it's hard to bootstrap a startup if you're an artisan food producer or any startup, but especially artisan food producers, because it is, often they don't realise that the costs of when they were doing something out of their home kitchen have to be completely rethought of when you're paying for a commercial kitchen cookery space, when you're when you've got an opportunity to scale up, when you do have to start thinking about getting your council permits all up to order or getting some shelf life testing, and like there's a whole lot of hidden costs that get made aware to them. And then, we say to all of our startups across, that's across the Melbourne Innovation Centre spectrum, where we help, hundreds of startups through our other programs like our digital solutions program. We say to them, how much are you giving yourself an hour as a salary? That's often a very simple question that startups don't factor into their sort of profit and loss. It's like, have you allocated at least $25 an hour, which is barely minimum wage, just over minimum wage, to yourself or your startup? Because that's something you need to start doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. I'm well aware of the perils of not paying yourself when you do your own thing. But really great questions. And I just love anything that, saves people that time and anguish, because a lot of the, the groundwork's been done. It just does not need to be done over and over and over and over again. Some lessons, have been learnt and they could just be passed on.
Absolutely. And there's one... if there's one thing that we can do well through our shared kitchen space, is that we really are able to get businesses operational from a compliance perspective straight away. So, both the kitchen, the process to fill in the form and liaise with council, in our case, Darwin Council, it's proven to be really, really seamless. So that makes a world of difference for businesses who are kind of hesitant about starting out. So
yeah,
we've it's definitely a win from our regard in helping getting turnarounds and permits running after only a few weeks.
Yeah, so good, Lou. Love it. Saving people so much time and energy so they can get on with the important stuff of creating whatever it is that is burning within them. Lou, so great to catch up. Always interesting to hear what you've got on the go. It just sounds like it's full steam ahead. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Good luck with all the projects.
If I can give a plug again to our website, foodincubator.com.au, and anyone who's out there listening who's keen to have a crack, then just reach out.
We'll put the link in the show notes as well, everybody. But thanks so much for your time, Lou.
Appreciate that, Dani.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtyLinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This